However, the Masoretic text's reading of Pule is supported by the Dead Sea Scroll of Isaiah and the Syriac Peshitta. Some scholars have suggested that Pule was the island Philly in the Nile. Punishment. See crime and punishment. Punites of belonging to Pava or Pa. The family descendants of Issach's second son, Pova. New 26. 23. Pun and Punon. A campsite between Zamona and Oboth that Israel reached sometime after leaving Mount Hor Jebel Madura. New 33. 41-43 Its location has not been determined with certainty, but it is generally identified with Finan, about 30 km 19 ms of Ain Husb. Pupil. The opening in the colored iris of the eye. It appears black because behind the pupil is the dark interior of the eye. The pupil changes in size as the iris adjusts to existing light conditions. Light enters the clear cornea, passes through the pupil and into the eye's lens. The Hebrew word middle. No text to acute miritra longo. Purification 715 law is to be so treated. PR 7. 2 Mentioning God's fatherly care of Israel, Deuteronomy 32. 10 says that he safeguarded the nation as the pupil of his eye. David prayed that he would be protected and cared for by God as the pupil of the eyeball. PS 17. 8 He wanted Jehovah to be quick to act in his behalf when under enemy attack. Compares Act 2. 8. Where the Hebrew ba. Eyeball, is used. CI. Disciple. Pupil also means one who learns or takes instruction, a disciple. Thus some Bible versions use it to render the Greek tes, as at Luke 6. 40 ne, def, nw, at. On this meaning, see disciple. Per. A non-Hebrew word found at Esther 3. 7 and 9. 24, 26. It means lot heb. Go middle. See lot, I. This is the singular form, the plural being Purim. As 9. 26, 28-32 Per is linked with an Akkadian word, Puru, meaning lot. It is the source of the name of the Jewish festival Purim. See Purim. Puripura. The attendant, probably armor-bearer, of Gideon who went with him during the night to spy on the Midianite camp. JG 7. 9-15. Purchase. Something acquired as a result of giving in exchange items of value. Money, goods, services, or even a life. As early as Abraham's day people were formally buying and selling goods, properties, or services, using a medium of exchange such as money, much the same as today. Abraham purchased with money male slaves. GE 17. 12, 13 Upon Sarah's death Abraham formally purchased a family burial plot from Ephron, one of the sons of Heth. GE 23. 3-20. 49. 29-32 The details of that first scripturally recorded legal contract of history are interesting. In a true display of courtesy Abraham bowed down when making his offer. Not the field, but only the cave which is at the extremity of Ephron's field is what Abraham wanted to buy. Ephron made a counter-offer. Whether he was feigning Oriental liberality by saying he would give the property to Abraham GE 23. 7-11, or as some think, he was merely expressing willingness to part with it, that is give it up for a price, is not certain. What is certain is his insistence that both the cave and the field be included in the deal. Final agreement was reached, the price named, the bargain made, and the money carefully weighed out, 400 silver shekels current with the merchants. C. $880 GE 23. 16 In those days money was not minted into coins but was weighed on scales. Thus the field and the cave that was in it and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all its boundaries round about, became confirmed to Abraham as his purchased property. All this legal transaction took place in the presence of both parties and witnesses, yes, before the eyes of the sons of Heth among all those entering the gate of his city. GE 23. 17, 18 Similarly, Jacob later purchased a tract of land from the Shechemites. GE 33. 18, 19. During a 7-year famine, Joseph, as the Prime Minister of Egypt, sold grain at first for money, and when that was exhausted, for payment he accepted their domestic animals, next the land, and finally the people themselves. GE 42. 2-25. 47. 13-23. The law of Moses strictly forbade buying and selling on the Sabbath, as it also prohibited unfair business dealings. During Israel's apostasy these laws were often violated. LA 25. 14-17. NE 10. 31. 13. 15-18. AM 8. 4-6. When King David wanted to purchase the threshing floor of Araunah Ornan, the man graciously tried to give it to the king. However, David insisted on paying a sum of 50 silver shekels $110 for the immediate altar site, plus the necessary sacrificial materials. Later, it appears, more of the surrounding property was added to include an area large enough for the whole temple site, the purchase price being 600 gold shekels by weight c. $77,070. 2-24. 21-24. 1ch21. 22-25 During the reigns of both kings Jehoash and Josiah, purchases of materials Otextoi acute miritra longo, Purim 716 Purim. The festival celebrated on the 14th and 15th of Adar, the last month of the Jewish year, corresponding to late February and early March. Also called the Festival of Lots. As 9. 21 The name comes from the act of Haman in casting per lot to determine the auspicious day to carry out an extermination plot against the Jews. Being a Nagagite, perhaps a royal Amalekite, and a worshipper of pagan deities, he was resorting to this as a species of divination. As 3. 7. La, ftn. See divination. Lot, I per. In King Ahasuerus' I 12th year, on Nisan 13, apparently in the spring of 484 BCE the official extermination decree that Haman had induced the king to approve was prepared for all the Persian provinces, commanding the destruction of the Jews. Commemoration of deliverance. The festival commemorates the Jews' deliverance from destruction through Haman's plot. Consequently, the name Purim was probably given by the Jews in irony. As 9. 24-26 It is also called in the apocryphal book of Maccabees Mordecai's Day, since Mordecai played an important part in the events pertaining to the festival. 2 Maccabees 15. 36, through the efforts of Queen Esther, at the risks of her life and as directed by her older cousin Mordecai, the Jews were delivered. Esther fasted for 3 days before seeking an audience with the king to invite him to a banquet, and then to a second banquet where her petition could be presented. As 4. 6. 5. 8 The petition was favorably heard, and since the original decree could not be changed on account of the unchangeable law of the Medes and Persians Dar 6. 8. Another decree was issued on the 23rd day of Sivan. This document granted the Jews the right to defend themselves and enabled them to prepare. It was written by Mordecai and translated into many languages for various districts of the Persian Empire. The Jews fought with the help of the princes, satraps, and governors, and turned the tables on the anti-Jewish enemies. A great slaughter took place on Adar 13, not of the Jews, but of their enemies. It continued in the royal city of Shushan through the 14th. On the 14th day of Adar the Jews in the jurisdictional districts rested, and those in Shushan on the 15th day, with banqueting and rejoicing. As 8. 3. 9. 19. To commemorate this deliverance, Mordecai imposed upon the Jews the obligation to observe Adar 14 and 15 each year with banqueting and rejoicing and sending portions to one another and gifts to the poor people. As 9. 20-22 Later, another letter was written with the confirmation of Esther the Queen commanding this festival. It was to be held in each generation, in each family, jurisdictional district, and city at the appointed time each year. As 9. 28-31. Siesta, Book of. The festival is celebrated by the Jews to this day in a detailed way, with many additions. One of the traditional enlargements that came in the process of time was the setting aside of the 13th day of Adar as a day of fasting, called the Fast of Esther. Trade or labor is not prohibited during this festival. A question on John 5. 1. There is no direct mention of the festival of Purim in the Christian Greek scriptures. Some have claimed that there is a reference to it at John 5. 1. After these things there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. However, the application of this verse to the festival of Purim is unsubstantiated. Certain manuscripts have the definite article, reading, the festival of the Jews. CNWFTN. This would indicate that it must have been one of the 3 solemn seasonal festivals listed in Deuteronomy 16. 16, especially when we note that Jesus went up to Jerusalem, which he would not be required to do to keep the festival of Purim. Purim was connected more with the local synagogue and the local area than with the temple. The festival was to be kept in the city of one's residence. It is also o textuale acute miritra longo, Prus 717 instruction. Mordecai respected God's decree and refused to bow to Haman. S3. 2, 5. X 17. 14-16 Also, the words of Mordecai to Esther as 4. 14 indicate that he looked to a higher power for deliverance for the Jews, and Esther's fasting before entering the king's presence with her original petition, a banquet invitation, indicated her appeal to God for help. As 4. 16. Purple. See colors. Dyes, dyeing. Purse. A bag or pouch used by both men and women to carry gold, silver, copper, coined money, or other items. Women sometimes had ornamental purses, or handbags, possibly of a long, round shape. Issa 3. 16, 22. 46. 6. Mount 10. 9 Early purses were made of leather, of woven rushes, or of cotton. Since they were in the form of bags, they were drawn together and secured at the neck by means of leather straps or other